All right, I apologize for not being in class today, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to go through the major issues or the major functions that we have in terms of writing essay exams. So what I've done in the writing prompt is present you with a series of potential questions that would occur in a geology or geography program. And what I want to do is walk through this process of writing essay responses and think about it in terms of the paragraph as the central element of this format. All right, so if we look at these first set of questions, I want you to notice first the introductory words, and we're going to be looking at what the form of an essay question is. So you'll notice the first one says compare and contrast, the second one is define, third is summarize, the fourth is argue, and then compare and contrast again. So we might want to ask the question, and I think it's always worth doing, is to ask why are you being asked to do a specific task in writing? And so in this case, we're going to ask the question, why do instructors ask essay questions? Well, there are actually several reasons for this. And if you want to think about it, they really are in an order of complexity and of higher order thinking. So if you look at the first one, evaluate a student's understanding of core concepts in a class or discipline, what we're really asking there is whether the student understands the basic content areas that we've given you. In other words, can you give us back the core concepts, put them together in some meaningful way? Now, at the next level then, we might ask a student to apply those core concepts to a specific problem, in other words, a case study. And so we've got a little bit higher level thinking. Linked to that might be the issue of similarities and differences in core concepts. In other words, can you put core concepts together in a manner that discriminates between two ideas or that bridges two ideas? Now, once you get beyond those kind of core ideas, then faculty might ask the question, can you put all of this together in a new way? In other words, can you bring together disparate ideas or complementary ideas and come up with new ways of thinking? And at the highest level, what we would ask you to do is to put these together and make a case for something. In other words, to use what you've learned to support a point of view. So think about essay questions in terms of where along this continuum are we asking you to think. So the next step then, so if you think about, okay, this is why you're being asked, the next question is, how do I actually read an essay question? And it's always important to understand how you read a question as well as how you might respond to a question. All right, so let's take this apart. When you read, the first thing I want you to think about in an essay question is, what is the thesis of the question? That is, what is its focus? You can kind of think about this in terms of its subject. Then think about what the active verb is in that question. In other words, most essay questions are going to present it in the form of an active verb that directs you towards how you answer it. If you take these two ideas, you're going to be able to answer these questions much more effectively. So, for example, if we take compare and contrast the content area of geography and geology, well, okay, there are actually a couple of questions buried in this. So, first of all, we have some terms: geography, geology, and content area. This forms the thesis or the subject of the question. So what do we mean by content areas? Well, in the case of academic discipline, content areas are the topics that they cover. So you have to ask that as a question. That's a subordinate question in a sense. And then compare geography and geology. And again, compare, we're going to get to what that means in a minute, but that's one form of action. And then contrast geography and geology. So we had to break this question apart into those three elements. So let's take apart all of the possible questions on this writing prompt. Please note that I've turned the subjects in a sense subjects in a sense blue. Content areas of geography and geology. Anthropogenic climate change. Projections used in cartography and spatial visualization. Sustainability over sustainable development, environmental policy. And then rocks and minerals. So those are the subjects. The second aspect of this is the action. So when I say content areas of geography and geology, well, that's the subject. But what am I supposed to do with that? Well, I'm supposed to compare and contrast those content areas. And the next one, anthropogenic climate change. Well, what do I want you to do? I want you to define it. Projections in contemporary cartography, I want you to summarize them. Sustainability over sustainable development, argue for one of those terms. And then again, back to compare and contrast. All right, we're going to stop for a moment, and this will pick up in a second part of this lecture. We're going to put these in small pieces so we can think about these verbs in the next section. So we'll be back in just a moment.